Well, 3, 2. Now we're live. There we
3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. I'm Garrett Philbin here.
It's a countdown.
It's the final countdown. I'll finish my previous sentence. Garrett Philbin, founder of this financial coaches community. It's a pleasure to be with you as always. And I am here with the one, the only, the magnificent, the venerable, the slightly gray-haired Scott Maderer.
Slightly? Only slightly? It's a lot more than slightly, my friend. I started going gray at 30, though, so it's fine.
You went distinguished. You went for the distinguished look.
Yeah, isn't that weird how, if a guy gets gray-headed, we call it distinguished, but then we're insulting to women when they get gray hair? It's horrible. It's very strange. I don't understand this.
It's, thank God it's the only time we have a double standard between men and women.
Oh, yeah, exactly. There's never any...
Well,
send all hate mail to Garrett Philbin at
that's Garrett, 2 R's and 2 T's at beawesomenotbroke.com. Perfect.
Anyway, sorry.
So what are we covering today, Scott? Well, actually, let me tell you.
I was going to say, I don't know. What are we covering today? We discussed this already. I've slept since we talked about it.
Since I'm the one leading this. So what we're going to cover today are 4 things, and it's really going to be focused more for people who are looking to start their financial coaching businesses or in the very, very early stages of starting their financial coaching businesses. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Stick around. You're in for a wild ride. This is going to be fun. We're going to go through 4 things today at minimum. And if you have questions, as always, feel free to put them in the comments and we will take them as they come in and answer them on the live as well. But we're going to be talking about how much money do you need to get started with your financial coaching business? How can you do coaching as a side business, or what does it look like to do it as a side business as you're started? How do you work with free versus paying clients at the beginning? Is there one that's better than the other? And if you start with free, how do you transition to paid? And then what did your offerings look like and how much did you charge?
Okay.
So that's fun stuff that we're going to be tackling today. And for those who are here, just give a little wave on the Facebook thing.
Reverse alphabetical order by height. Is that the order we're going in?
I think that's what we're going to go by.
Okay,
Reverse alphabetical order by height. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you're here, say hello. Hit the like button. I don't know if it still has the wave button that you can give, but just let us know that you're here. Say hi. And as always, questions, as Scott just said, put them in the comments and we'll get to them. So I think actually, if we're starting in reverse chronological order by height or alphabetical by height, we should just start with...
They can do a fist bump.
Oh, nice. Then please give us a fist bump to let us know that you're here. First question, Scott. How much money do you need to get started as a financial coach?
Same answer I gave you yesterday or earlier before we started. It's $4 million, and please send it to Scott Maderer at no. There isn't necessarily a magic number. There's a lot of variables to that. It depends a lot on how are you doing it. So if you're going to do the Garrett route and just kind of quit your day job and say, I'm all in, obviously you're going to want some level of emergency fund savings, runway, whatever you want to call it, saved up where you can have something to live on while you're getting up and running. But again, that's a variable number. There's not that's $3,000. Well, no, it depends on how much your expenses are. You got 2 kids at home and a mortgage. That's going to be different than you're crashing with, other people and house setting and doing, all of the things that Garrett, like when you started out, you did a bunch of those things. I know, because I talked to you while what state are you in this today, Garrett? But again, that allowed you to stretch that money further, and it was, it gave you more time to ramp up. As far as the business side of it, again, some variables. Usually you can start with just simply a, basic, DBA or doing business as kind of filing. Some states have a fee for that. It's usually not very expensive. If you want to go all the way to forming an LLC and stuff, we can talk about pros and cons of that. But usually you can just start with the DBA, start with a basic bank account, Again, they may charge you a little bit of a fee, $20 or something to open a bank account. You have to deposit a little bit of money in it. Usually it's not super cost prohibitive. You can get started with as little as that, maybe $50. That is enough to get the ball rolling. When I started for about $200. I did a basic DBA, I did a bank account, and I had some logo work done. Technically, I didn't need the logo to start, but I did, and I ended up spending about $200. Then later on, I added a website. Later on, I added business cards. Later on, I added other things. But again, that's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. They think they need all of that stuff before they can start. Truth is, you can start for next to nothing. How do you start a business? You start telling people that you have a business, and you get people to give you money. The joke is, how do you know you have a business? When you have customers. That's a very true, it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of not. Until you have clients, you really don't yet have a true business. And again, you have to check with your local state and area. There may be, you have to have a business license in some states, other ones you don't. You may have to have certain requirements like that. But again, it varies by locality. There's not a set rule. And again, usually that's not terribly expensive. California and New York are probably some of the more expensive. Connecticut, those are the most expensive ones. And even there, you're talking hundreds, not thousands of dollars. So it's not too cost prohibitive. So that's kind of the cheapy option, the down and dirty option. And I highly recommend letting the business pay for itself, meaning start like that. As you start having money come in, especially if you're doing, and we're going to talk more about like starting it as a side hustle and stuff later, so I won't dive into that. But, especially if you're doing it that way, use the business money to, okay, now I've got enough money that I can actually get a website. Now I've got enough money that I can get some business cards. Now I've got enough money that I can get a logo design. Now I've got enough money, and let it kind of help pay for itself, so to speak, rather than sink $20,000 into starting the business and you don't even know if it's a business yet.
Yeah. Financial coaching is something you can start, like Scott said, for a couple $100. I mean, probably $1,000 tops is what you would really need. And as Scott alluded to, I started doing financial coaching full time. I just
you went all in.
I quit my other job and just jumped in with both feet, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I learned a lot quickly, but it was pretty stressful. I had about a year's worth of runway when I started, which I thought would be enough. And in the end, it was. But when I went from
there were places where it didn't feel like it was going to be.
When I went from 12 months of runway to 9 months of runway to 6 months of runway, it then was like, it forced me to make decisions that, like, okay, I need to start bringing in money versus what's the best thing long-term for my business. And so for someone who is getting into financial coaching, has never been in the financial services industry, is starting from scratch, like I did, I think you need a longer runway. And this is, again, starting full time right off the bat. But, I didn't have any connections in the industry. I'd run a business before, but never on my own. And so understand that, there are additional variables to your own risk tolerance, how comfortable you are seeing money flow out of the bank. But I think
and what your expenses are,
True. Correct. And I do agree that probably the better way to do it is to do it part-time and do it as a side hustle to only fund the business with money coming in from the business for the most part, after some initial capital that you put in, up to that $1,000, and to minimize your expenses ahead of time so that you have the flexibility in the short term, which may be years, depending on how long it takes for you to get your coaching business to this off the ground. But err on the side of more money than you think, especially if you've never.
It always takes longer and costs more.
especially if you've never, done coaching before, you've never started your own business, you're coming from a different area than finance. All of those things mean there's probably going to be a steeper learning curve,
right?
Like myself. And so it's probably good to get some of that learning done on a part-time basis when you have income coming in from a already working. And so you have stability of income and job while you can start to grow your coaching business on the, which is Scott.
You're freezing up again, Garrett.
Oh no.
At least on my end.
Okay. Let me just check. Let me see.
It looks like you're good on the live on actual Facebook, but you froze up there for a minute on my end. Might be my internet, but I don't think so because I was clear.
Yeah, I don't think it's yours. So actually, let me just say, am I coming through?
Actually, it looks like you are now, but yeah, you did freeze up on the Facebook Live. It's just tape delayed.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. I think we're having some internet issues here because I ran into that with my client call right before this. So
yeah,
just keep me posted.
You're still there, but it chopped up a little bit, but I mean, we could understand what you said. And Stephanie asked, what are some of the things you spend the money on if you're spending $1,000? And we talked a little bit about that, Stephanie, probably before you joined. But again, in some states, you have to have a business license. You have to file a DBA, that kind of thing. You may have to open a basic bank account that may or may not have a small fee associated with it. It depends on, there's a lot of variables. You may want a basic website or the other thing that I would add that we kind of didn't talk about is, especially if you're new to this, you may want to sign up for one of the trainings that's out there. There are some good ones out there. Garrett has links to them in the resource docs. I work with Coach Connections. There's others, and that may be a little bit of money as well that you invest as you get started. Now, what I will tell you is, don't go become a training junkie, which is this is the people that they've taken 7 trainings and they haven't had a single client yet. I mean, that's fine if this is just what you want to do for fun, but don't call it a business because you're not starting a business. You're just collecting learning, and that's fine. Again, not a judgment.
Yeah.
I like learning too. So, I like reading books and all of that, and I spend money on it, but don't confuse that with, I have to learn one more thing before I get started. This is not to say go out and start coaching clients when you have no idea what you're doing and therefore do a terrible job with them and screw up their lives. That's not what we're suggesting. We are kind of presuming here that you've already done some work to be able to do a decent job. Doesn't mean you're going to do as good of a job with your first client as you do with your 45th client. At least if you do, you're the only person on the planet that did, because that never happens. But I don't know about you, but I look back at some of my first clients and go, "Oh God, I feel so sorry for them." It's like,
but you got to start somewhere.
But you got to start somewhere. So don't confuse needing to be perfect to keep you from getting started. At the same time, we're not suggesting go get started and just do a halfway job and do a terrible disservice to people. That's not it either. And so depending on your skill level and what your knowledge base is and what your personal experience is, for instance, if you've run a business before, you may not need a training that focuses on the business building side. You might, because coaching businesses are different than other businesses, but you might not. If you want to learn more about coaching skills, there's ones that focus on coaching skills. If you want to learn more about technical knowledge, there's ones that focus on technical knowledge. If you want to learn more about behavioral finance, there's ones that focus on that. And then a combination of all of that. There are ones that have different parts of that. So you kind of need to pull in those sorts of things. It would also be additional cost. But again, this is one of those things where you can kind of, you can put a little bit of money in, maybe $100, and then as you earn some money, put in more money. And then, and then after 3 or 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, now you're at the point where you're no longer having to invest as much back into the business and you're actually able to pull an income off of it. But that takes a little bit of time usually for most of us.
Yeah. And what I'll say regarding trainings is, yes, don't become a training junkie and take a lot of trainings before you've had clients. Also, just because trying to integrate different approaches that all of them are good in their own ways, but
there are differences.
I've done Coach Connections, Financial Coach Academy, Deborah's Money Coaching Institute, and the AFC, and even I took 6 months to a year in between each of those, and it's still a lot to incorporate. However, I do wish I would have taken one of those back when I started my business, because I built the wheel myself over the first 2.5 years, which is when I got connected with Coach Connections at about year 2.5, and realized that what I'd spent 2.5 years creating was pretty much already available. And I could have had it for, 1,500, whatever that was, $1,200 at the time. So I think that there's cost and then there's value of, I could have spent 100 or less 100 less man hours creating my own wheel. But also it's important to know that you do want to do financial coaching, that this is the right thing for you. So it's probably good to have some beta or some test clients, work with some people to get a sense of, is this something I really want to do? And is it worth me investing more of my time and money into? Just for those who don't know, kind of what was your approach, Scott, in terms of going, because you did this for free, then you did this as a paid side hustle, and then you went and did it full time?
Yeah. Oops. Apparently this thing wasn't muted. So I was hearing double for a minute. See, I told you to mute and I didn't mute. But I reminded him. I get points for that, right? So anyway, because I was looking at Stephanie's question. So when I started, we actually started coaching a few people that had come out of a class that we taught for someone else. We just facilitated a class, and there were some folks that came to us and wanted help outside of that class. And so I literally charged somebody for that time. I think I charged $147 for, and we met with them like 4 times, for like an hour each time. Don't do the math. Okay. But had to pick something. And so I literally
got to start somewhere.
I picked $147 out of thin air and said, that's what we'll charge. And okay. And we started. And then I took what now is the Financial Coach Master Training. It was called something different back then, through Dave Ramsey. In my case, that really didn't help us much. It wasn't the pieces that I needed, not because it's a bad training, but just it wasn't what I needed. So we kind of came back and retooled and did a lot of what, like Garrett's talking about, where we started creating a bunch of stuff on our own. I was doing all of this with a day job. I built it to a little bit of a level, but it was not going anywhere close to where I wanted it to go. I joined Coach Connections, and because the focus there is on kind of marketing, building a business, coaching skills, all of those pieces and integrating them. For me, that was the perfect training and perfect group. I started kind of growing the business quicker. Then I ended up pausing because my day job kind of took over my life for about 2 years, and really kind of got to the point where it's like, I either need to quit this job or I'm going to probably, either kill someone or hurt myself or something. So I stepped down from the position that was taking so much of a demand of my time and rebuilt the business up again, using the Coach Connections principles. And that's where I've gotten to today. So for me, I paid a little bit for the Dave Ramsey training. And then a few years later, I paid for the Coach Connections training. And then I've been part of that ever since. But those are the two trainings I took. And neither one of them did I take at the very, very beginning. Both of them I took after I'd already had a couple of clients.
Right. And now you teach most of the Coach Connections trainings, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, not all of them, but most of them. Yeah, the one we're doing right now is Dave's going to teach it. But and when I was working the day job, yeah, we'll talk more about those questions in a minute.
Do you want to hit? I know Stephanie's is the biggest question that we get from coaches, and it's alive in and of itself. It's a entire course in and of itself, but just how to get clients. How did you find your initial clients, whether they were free or paid? How did that work for you?
Yeah. So for me, my very first clients actually came from people that were taking, in this case, FPU. And then they reached out to me. You aren't allowed to pitch coaching as when you're facilitating FPU. So I never pitched it, but there were people that reached out to me outside of the class and said, "Hey, could you help us one-on-one?"
Financial Peace University is a Dave Ramsey course.
Right. Sorry. FPU is Dave Ramsey's course for anyone not familiar with it. And my wife and I had done a number of those classes back in the day. That was my very first. And then from there, you froze again, by the way. And then from there, we reached out. So sorry, Garrett, you're frozen. It looks like you're winking. So it's very funny. From there, the next group of people that I reached out to were friends and family, and started inviting them to, if they knew anybody that needed the services. And from there, we had people that signed up. And then from there, it's been building more of a referral network. There, now you're not moving again. And building a referral partner. So, Stephanie, there's a couple of circles you can look at for finding clients. The direct circle is your own friends and family. And the question there, and there's actually a video on this somewhere in the unit section, but marketing to friends and family, or if not, there's in the Coach Connections free resource guide. I forget which videos or which place. And if you don't have that, I can send you a link to it, Stephanie, that you sign up. And what happens is, you talk to friends and family, not about like trying to sell them your service, but about what you're excited about, what you do. And then you ask them if they know anyone who needs your service. You can kind of turn that into a referral network. You can do a very similar thing with referral partners, which is simply finding people that serve your avatar, but do it in a tangential way. So they don't provide the same service as you, but they talk to the same kind of people as you, and then offer help for them. So like if they run a Facebook group, offer to come in and do a free session for their Facebook group on budgeting, for variable income, because that's your avatar, and whatever, there's a lot of variables there, because to really answer your question, we need to know, who do you serve? What kind of package do you have? What's your target? There's a lot of information, and then it becomes very clear. Once you've built that foundation, it should become very clear to you where you need to go. And then it's just a matter of getting in front of those people.
That's a really good overview.
And that was not a lot of detail, but I'd be happy to talk it through with you if you need more help.
Yeah. And that's something that, again, we could go into in a lot more depth. I think it's something that
session, easily.
I was going to say, and we'll be diving into that a lot more in the future. So definitely reach out to Scott if you want. Scott, if you don't mind actually just posting after the free resources, just so that Stephanie can have access to those. I don't know where the link is on my end. So if you have that, just paste it in there.
Yep. I will pull it up and paste it in a minute.
And then we had a question from Ikechukwu, who asked, with a day job, did you typically schedule clients meetings like on the evenings or the weekends? Like, how did you navigate when you had a full-time job actually working with clients during that time?
Yeah. So the first thing to recognize is, from day one, I did my business as a virtual business. And what that means, the beauty of that is, it meant I have clients all over the world. The beauty of that is, what was a convenient time for them was not necessarily an inconvenient time for me. So they could do it. You know what I mean? Sometimes the evening for them was my morning, and my morning was their, that kind of thing. So what I did is I literally opened up the times that I had available. And so, some of it was weekends and evenings, and then clients had to find one of those times that worked for them. Interestingly, by the way, because people will always tell you, oh, well, you can't do that because clients won't do. I had clients that were on a call with me at like 1 a.m. their time, because it was important to them to get on the call, and so they literally would wake up at 1 a.m. and jump on a call. If it's important to them, they'll make it work. So you don't necessarily feel like you have to bend over backwards and work around all of it. Plus, again, with a virtual business, which yay for virtual business, That's a lot more. There's a lot more people that are available at the times that you open up than you might think, because it's worldwide. If that makes sense. And so, 5 o'clock your time is not 5 o'clock everywhere in the world, whatever your time zone is. And so that's kind of the other piece of that. So yeah, I just literally sat down with my calendar and said, here's the times that I want to do business building and networking and marketing. Here's times that I want to actually see clients. Here's the times that I'm working my day job. Here's the times that I'm spending time with my family. Here's the times when I'm sleeping. That was the smaller bucket, and then I just kind of fit everything in. Yeah.
I think two big takeaways from that are boundaries, in terms of boundaries on your time, you getting clear on that as a coach for yourself and in your own business. And then communicating those to clients and just saying, here is, I have these. This is why I coach when I coach, because I have my day job, but I want to set aside this other time for my family and these other things that are important. And the people you're coaching are human and they'll understand.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might not work, but also realize that in the long term, you don't want to loosen your bonds and work with people at times that don't actually work for you, that then be really challenging and you giving up the things that are most important to you. So there's that want to get clients, but know that it actually didn't happen very often. It sounded like to Scott or to me, but when you set those boundaries, there may be one person who can't do it, but most actually will meet at a time that's inconvenient for them if they find that it's really work that they want to be doing, if they settle on that. And it comes down to confidence as a coach as well. And this sometimes just takes time, but being confident that you can provide enough value and what you do is meaningful enough to just say, yeah, if you want it, you have to kind of do it on my schedule. Like, I'm the professional, I'm the coach here. This is my business and this is what works for me. Does that work for you?
Right.
And kind of being comfortable sitting in that space of, you let me know how you're going to make this work, and not having to say like, oh, well, if it doesn't work with your schedule, how do I, okay, well, I can open around. Yeah. And that's completely normal. I don't want to make it sound like that's a bad thing. In terms of like, if you have done that, you're a bad person, because I've done it. It's just part of the learning experience and feeling comfortable and confident and setting those boundaries and knowing that if one person can't work with you, there are 10 others who will be inspired enough and want it enough to have it work, make it work for them.
Right. Well, and the other part of that is it's also one of those, just recognize that you need to make that decision. In other words, the thing I want to empower people to do is, it's okay to think to yourself, hey, for this particular client, I want to adjust some things for them for whatever reason. It's a single mom, and that's a story that really resonates with me. So I'm going to bend and change some of my times and make something available for them. Great, then do it. It's not a good or bad. It's just having the confidence to recognize, again, think about it. When you go to the doctor's office, they don't come to you and go, well, here's the times I have available, but if those don't work for you, let me know and I'll open up and I'm not comparing what we do to what doctors do, but at the same time, it's a professional service. People actually kind of have the expectation of they need to work around a professional services time. So you can certainly have every right to do that. And it's perfectly acceptable. You're not doing anything wrong, not bad thing. Do that, as well.
Totally. And you started off working with people for free and then transitioned to paid. How did that look?
I did a few for free early on. And again, it was because they came out of the FPU, the Financial Peace University class. And so at first I was kind of like, I don't even know if I should charge people or, what should I charge people and whatnot. Pretty quickly, I started transitioning to paid. It was next to nothing, but it was paid kind of thing. So the interesting thing, you'll hear two pushbacks. Okay. The first one is people will tell you that you can't work with people for free because they won't take it seriously. They don't have any skin in the game and therefore they won't do it. Okay. I'm here to tell you that's bull. that actually means you didn't do a good job as a coach of laying expectations and boundaries and doing good client onboarding, what we call housekeeping, and setting that up in the first place. That's actually on you, not on them. So
Yeah.
you need to learn how to do that better. But then, yeah, you can work with free clients and they'll be 100% in on it. At the same time, there is a certain amount of, when you charge somebody for something, you inherently get a little bit more buy-in from them, just by the nature of the fact that they paid you money. There's a natural buy-in that occurs with that. There's also, it creates more of an expectation of, this is a value for value exchange. I'm giving you value and you give me value. In this case, you're giving me money and I'm giving you knowledge and accountability and these things. So it is easier in some ways to get people to buy in when you get them to pay, but it's not a requirement. So the first, 3, 4, 5, something like that, clients that we had were free. I continue to this day. There is a component of my business that is done as benevolence, either almost no cost or free. But I keep it, I cap it at a percentage of my business. So if I've got 15 clients, only this percentage of them can be free, because I have to keep my lights on and keep food on the table. So there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you evil or anything. There's nothing wrong with getting paid. And that's kind of the process I used. Again, not saying that's the right way to do it. That's the only way to do it. Honest truth, if you've got the knowledge and skills, charge right out of the gate. There's no reason that you have to do beta clients for free. It's not a bad thing to do, but a lot of it has to do with your confidence in your abilities and your confidence in making the pitch. Because if you make the pitch to the client, so you've had a call and you talked about it and you get to the end of it and you're like, and they go, how much is coaching? And you go, well, I was kind of thinking that maybe you could, how does 95 sound to you? Ain't nobody on the planet saying yes to that, and in that case, you're better off going, well, as one of my early clients, I would actually like to work with you for free, but my ask for you instead is that you give me a testimonial at the end and give me any feedback on what worked well and what didn't, so that I can kind of learn as I go. I am going to test the whole process. Now, here's the kicker. However, you need to anchor your price. So for me, what I would say is, normally this is $9.97 for a 3-month package. However, because you're one of my beta clients, and right now I'm using you to help test my systems and processes and make sure that everything works, I'm going to run you through the whole process. I'll actually discount it, fill in the blank, %. At the end of that, I'm going to ask for some feedback and a testimonial if you've gotten benefit from this. Does that work for you? What I did was anchor the price. Okay. I now told them it's a $997 value and they're getting it for, and the reason I said X% off, charge 50% off, charge 100% off. I don't care. What do you have the confidence saying out loud? Okay. I have no problem looking you in the eye and go, I charge $997 for a 3-month package. I don't blink. I don't get embarrassed. I don't stumble. So it's easy for me to make that pitch. When I first started, I would have thrown up if I said that out loud. So that's not where I needed to start.
Correct. And I think that's an important point. It moves with your level of comfort in what you do and how you do it. And that we'll get to that in the next section. Which was,
we're kind of blurring some of these questions a little bit.
Yeah. And just to, Nakia said, do you really like the idea of capping how many low cost or free clients that you have? And just one point to that before we move on is a really helpful thing is to have set in advance what your criteria are for working with someone for low cost or free. Because there can be instances where someone will say, I can't pay or I can't pay that much. And if you don't have a set criteria ahead of time that kind of qualifies who you work with at a reduced rate or free or not, then it becomes more of an emotional decision that you make in the moment and that may or may not feel good afterward. So being able to set that criteria ahead of time, it makes it very clear, okay, who goes through and fits that criteria and goes through the other side and not, and it takes the emotion out of it. And because it's something that you set ahead of time, you aren't going to just be in the emotional side of it. It's like writing down ahead of time what your stock investing strategy is, or just your investing strategy, right? So when the market goes as it's doing right now, you pull out that piece of paper and you're like, right, I'm investing for the long term for my future. This is a long-term plan. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's like, all right, cool, I got it.
Right.
And so I don't know if that's something, Scott, that you agree with or not.
100%. And like I have very specific categories there. Cool. And by the way, I don't tell people those categories. In other words, it's not like on my website, it says, and by the way, if you're in one of these categories, you get it cheaper. That's not what I do that as part of the assessment, because during the assessment, I'm going to find out if they fit in one of those categories.
Yeah.
And then I just adjust. I say, and again, I say, this is my normal price. However, because you're you fit in this category, and I describe it in a non-derogatory way, I discount for those folks by this much. And so this is what you would pay. And so I'll give you an example. For me, single moms is one of the categories, because I am the godfather of a pair of little girls that are being raised by a single mom. Single parenthood has run in, a lot in my circle. It's just something that touches my heart. So if you're a single mom or a single dad, a single parent, you get a discount. Okay. Because your life is hard enough. I don't need to make it harder. And then the other one is military and first responder people. So if you're a policeman, fireman, military, active duty, or retired, or spouse of one of those folks, again, I give a discount. And that's literally my specific criteria. And then within those, sometimes people go to the level that discount is 100%. But it's not always 100%. I will tell you, for one thing, I have discovered that a lot of people would rather pay you something than nothing.
Yeah.
So I've literally coached for as little as $25, but they felt really good that they'd given me the $25. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I have no problem with that. It was really free. I mean, $25 didn't, that didn't cover any of my bills, but it symbolic. Made them feel better. It was symbolic. And that's fine. I think Ray asked a question too about the credentials to coach. Do you want to?
Got it. Yes. Let me just see. It just popped up now. Scared I don't have the credentials to coach because I've never attended trainings or don't have certifications. Do I get a certification first? And what certification do I need? Or is it better to shadow someone? Ooh, this is good. Unfortunately, I have to jump in a couple minutes to prep, but we do have this. It has been answered a fair amount in the units section. We do have some posts and videos around this. So on the top left-hand side, kind of in the menu bar of the group, you can click on units, and then there's a section that says, what certifications do I need in order to do financial coaching? The short answer is you don't need any certifications. Right?
From a legal perspective.
From a legal perspective. Now, there are also things that you legally can't talk about, giving investment advice, legal advice, tax advice, unless you're registered or
and legally in some states, insurance.
Correct. So the short answer is no, but there's a lot more to that.
But here's the key part. The very first two words, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Stop. If it bothers you that you don't have a credential, then you need to do something to get yourself not scared. That may be taking a training. That may be shadowing someone. That may just be immersing yourself in the units on this group and picking the brains of other people and then going out and getting started with a beta client. Whatever. All of those things work for different people. So it depends on how you're wired and what works for you. But you do need to overcome that I'm scared part. If a training helps you do that, again, there's a unit on that. You can even see which trainings are recommended. There's a quiz now that will kind of walk you through that. You can talk to Garrett. He's taken all of them, just about. You talk to me. I'll point you in the right direction, whatever. But it's the I'm scared part that's really the most important part. Okay. From a practical perspective, no, you probably don't need a certification. From an emotional perspective, that may be what helps you, because it is something that helps some people.
And what I will say is also the fact that you are scared is not necessarily a negative thing.
No.
You can also say, because it means that you care enough to not want to do harm, which is a lot more than we can be said for a good amount of people in financial services. And I know it has a negative stigma, and that's not true for everyone. But the fact that you care enough to not want to do any harm, and you want to be really intentional about making sure that you have the knowledge, the coaching skills to do that. I just want to acknowledge you for that and say that, yeah, it's actually a good thing that you're scared, because it means that you care.
And it means you want to do a good job. Yep, absolutely. Agreed. And I know you've got a call to go to, so.
Yeah. I mean, lastly, because you mentioned just your pricing packages. So right now you have the Coach Connections model, right? The 3 months for $997.
For individual clients, I do a different package. I do a different package for business clients.
Nice. Yep. And I have a package for people who go through the practical side of money. I have a package for people who go through the emotional behavioral side of money. So one's a practical is 4 months. The behavioral is 6 weeks. When I started off, like Scott, I think I charged $250 for like 3 sessions, and it was pretty much just on like a small per package, like in a package of 3 sessions. And so it's changed a lot. I've done hourly sessions, packages of like 3 programs,
you did 4 months for a while.
Yep. 6-week programs, from pay in full, payment options. It's changed a lot. And I think you just have to kind of figure it out yourself, what works for you. There is some structure that you can bring to the process, and maybe we'll dive into that on another live. But I think it's helpful just to start with what feels just slightly uncomfortable to you, a little bit of a stretch, and then go with that, see how it feels when you say it out loud, and then move from there, test, see how that process works. If 3 sessions is enough to really help your ideal client with what they need, and then change if it doesn't. And just feel free to kind of shoot, aim, and kind of try something, readjust, try something, readjust, and fine tune from there.
And the other thing I would add to that is there are variables about who your client is, which is the why, again, we have a kind of base starting point that we recommend in Coach Connections. However, right at the beginning, we say you're going to have to adjust this as you get into it, because your avatar, your particular audience, all of that is going to be a variable that affects that. And so it is better to start, tweak, change. That's okay.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Cool. Well, thanks for keeping us honest in terms of time, Scott. I think there was the free resources that you were going to give for
that now.
Stephanie. Awesome. And anyone watching, if you have any questions that we didn't get to, just go ahead and put them into the comments, and we will either keep them in our question bank for future lives, or if it's kind of a short question, we'll just answer that in the comments directly. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. As always, we really appreciate you being here. And Scott, I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. And
you're very welcome.
Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Don't touch